Tonight, we take a look at the latest episode of Strange New Worlds, then we'll discuss the latest episode of the Orville, and conclude tonight's broadcast with a look at FX's The Old Man. All this coming up right now on The Writer Brothers. And welcome back to your Tuesday night home for movies, games, shows, and books, past, present, and future. I am, of course, your host, Petey York, and I am joined by my co-host, co-producer, Pollo Zapatos, aka John, and, of course, Mr. Brandon, Devil Cry 3. Welcome, gentlemen. Sadly, Corione, he just popped in the chat, said, just came in to wish you all luck. Sorry I lost my voice. That's the last time I deal with a sea witch. And
you mean sandwich?
We wish you, well, no, it's a sea witch that he tried to make. He probably said, hey, go make me a sandwich, and she did, and it came with the price of losing his voice. I don't know. We miss you, Corione. We wish you and CC Karaoke well this evening as you guys take care of whatever it is you all need to take care of, and we look forward to having everyone back here as soon as we can. But with that, we're going to go ahead and we're kind of shuffling things around, last-minute changes of the play order here. So we're actually going to start with FX's The Old Man, and then we'll go to Strange New Worlds and conclude with Orville. Just a last-minute change in the lineup. It happens in this. So first of all, kind of a change-up to the formula. Corione says, nah, the sandwich is cool, but she cheats at cards. Ah, that makes sense. Sandwich spilled. Yeah, get it?
Gamble.
Anyway. We are here to discuss one of FX's newest shows, The Old Man. And, John, I know we have a formula for this, but I gotta be honest. I didn't find anything I didn't like about these first couple of episodes. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, if I was gonna say anything I don't like is I don't like now knowing what my future holds for me as an old man.
Okay, you might be a badass, but you're not Jeff Bridges badass, okay? Anyway.
No, I just mean more the peeing 7 times before the opening credits finish.
Yeah, that opening scene was... I got some perspective there on what to look forward to in the next, 20 or so years. Probably sooner, knowing
5 years?
Yeah. Thanks.
Next week?
Yeah. Next week I'm officially 60, guys. I know. I decided, you know what? 30s and 40s and 50s. I don't need that. I'm just gonna go straight to 60.
Hey man, I had someone tell me today they thought I was in my mid to late 30s. When I graduated high school, they were in middle school.
Yeah, well, that's the youth these days. Like, if you're 1 year older than them, you might as well be a grandpa. Anyway. Yes. Anyway, The Old Man is a show that could basically quickly be summed up as what if John Wick retired? That's the easiest quick sell that I could give it. So, Brandon, if I really wanted you to get excited about this show, if you like John Wick or you like Jason Bourne, I'd be like, this is what he did instead of going to the retirement home.
I was going to say, my only immediate argument to that would be John Wick starts off John Wick by being retired.
Retirement. Retired. Yeah, we're up to like
Retired
5.
the forthcoming.
Yeah, John Wick Part 17.
Retired of the fourth kind.
Yeah. See, and that's just it. This show is so good. It's just making the discussion better. Even just we're not even talking directly about it. I'm trying to summarize, and we're coming up with some good material. So basically, imagine John Wick coming out of retirement for the 30th time, and he's just been living in the mountains by himself, and pretty much going through the stages of old manhood. You literally have to sit through the opening scene of him getting up in the middle of the night to pee several times until the last time is him having a dream about his wife. And it does a really good job of setting the stage and the tone of the overall show. The soundtrack really helps to back up the feel. And it also really challenges your perspective on who to right away. Because immediately we're introduced to Jeff Bridges' adversary, played by John Lithgow. He's assistant director at the FBI right now. And there's a history there that we're not all too familiar with. Go ahead. Oh, I guess the mic just picked up your breathing. Sorry, it sounded like you were about to ask a question.
Oh yeah, I it was like the precursor of a yawn. I just had the urge to breathe in real deep.
Nice. So, John, why don't you go ahead and chime in? What do you think really sells you on FX as the old man, aside from Jeff Bridges? I mean, really, it should just be able to say, Jeff Bridges, and then, okay, sometimes...
I'm going to be... Yeah, I think that's the funniest part about it, is the reason I was standoffish about it just from seeing the, Facebook ads was I was like, Jeff Bridges, he's not a killer, so this is probably going to be another, degradation of heroes, maybe something about getting over PTSD. I don't watch trailers, so I just picked up what I saw in the first 5 seconds before scrolling away. And so I was a little bit nervous, but then at one point I decided, after you had mentioned that we should definitely look into this one, I watched the trailer and I was like, okay, that looks really exciting, but still Jeff Bridges, he has the chance. Ever since Tron Legacy, I really got the vibe that he could play any character. As far as who's going to replace Sir Ian McKellen, Jeff Bridges is right there in the running, 100% ready to play the Gandalfs, ready to play the Dark Wizards, ready to play whatever you need as far as Sage Old Man, especially because of his character, the dude from The Big Lebowski. But then when you watch this show, you're like, I wonder how much of that is still going to reign true while he's also going through an active war journey. Are we going to get more of that I'm too tough for help, or are we going to get an actual human? Because that's kind of what Jeff Bridges represents, is he's a human that's achieved wisdom, not necessarily a superhuman that was blessed with wisdom.
Yeah.
And it's wild.
Yeah.
The show really feels like that.
Yeah, and I mean, that's my point. If you're a fan of John Wick, if you're a fan of Jason Bourne, and the first John Wick, in my opinion, I felt that John Wick
actually,
2...
to jump onto that one, if you're a fan of those shows and you wonder what would happen if Gandalf was those people, this is very close. I feel like this is very much what would a wise old man do if he was also a super secret spy. And this show is showing that, oh, Gandalf does have some physical prowess. And I think it's really fun. It's really cool. It's really rough.
Sorry, as a weird thought, have you guys seen the show Hit Monkey, by the way?
I've never even heard of it.
Not that I can think of, no.
Oh, buddy.
Wait, was that one on... Was that on Hulu?
It's on Hulu, yes. It's
I
was curious. I was just... Because we were talking about, John Wick and stuff, and, part of the whole point of Hit Monkey is
I love Hit Monkey. Yeah,
Hit Monkey is hilarious and awesome at the same time. It's very graphic.
So great.
The main
Invincible.
The main two characters is a monkey and an assassin. The whole idea behind it is that the assassin dies out by the monkeys and ends up being seen by one of the monkeys, so it's the monkey is the quiet straight man and the hitman's the obnoxious talkative, lived a terrible life, not a great dude, and is getting this monkey to go and take revenge on these people. It's a wild show.
It's really funny. It's the hitman is a ghost, played by Jason Sudeikis, or voiced by Jason Sudeikis. It's very much, I guess it would be kind of a younger man's journey version of Jeff Bridges' character in this show. Not necessarily that he's funny, but in terms of you're getting an actual person's life that, the spy trope's always just been, it's the best among us that are the most nimble and available in fighting. But it realized, this show's really starting to show that it's the hardened. It's the ones that are willing to put themselves aside. And then the show's about a guy that had to put himself aside and then put his country aside. And it's really interesting to see that like double conundrum. But then, like I said, still be Jeff Bridges, the sage wise man. Like, none of his actions feel false or forced. Like, they really feel like, as far as that guy would decide, those are his only options. And if I were in his shoes, I would agree.
Yeah, I really applaud this show tremendously for sticking to the realism of the circumstance. Like, Bourne was really good about keeping it mostly realistic. Didn't make him too much into an action hero. It was still believable. Same with the first John Wick movie. And like the pacing on these 2 episodes is very impressive because it's not super quick, but you don't get bored. And you really start to slowly get invested in not just Jeff Bridges' character, but also John Lithgow's character. And then it turns out there's a history between them, and we don't really know what that is, and that's what we'll probably find out throughout the rest of the show. And so it's going to be an interesting game of cat and mouse between the two. And I mean, these are two.
Well, and it's an even more interesting game of cat and mouse because, kind of like Tom and Jerry, as the show escalated, it got to the point where very clearly Tom didn't really want to kill Jerry. He just needed to keep Jerry in line. Or I can't remember who's who. I'm pretty sure Tom's the mouse. No, Tom was the cat.
Tom's the cat. Yeah.
Jerry's so Tom doesn't really want to kill Jerry, and that's really the game that we're watching. Is Lithgow, and these are semi spoilers, but there's so much well organized and well delivered exposition that even just glossing over this fact, you'll be happy to see how it was put together and how it makes sense. Because like Lithgow wants to do his job because he hasn't given up his relationship with country, but it feels more like now he's in Jeff Bridges' character's shoes, whereas Jeff Bridges' character was in those shoes when he was agile and in his 20s. Now John Lithgow's character is in the same position, but he's in his hardened 70s or 80s. I can't really tell how old they're supposed to be.
I think they're about late 60s, early 70s, if I had to guess, is what they might have been going for. But yeah, and it's just these are two well-established actors. But I think what was even more incredible was when they did the flashbacks to their younger lives, the actors that they managed to pick to play the younger versions of Jeff Bridges and John Lithgow, respectively. That was some impressive talent scouting overall. Not just
it's
finding.
Kind of how.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that's kind of how I felt when I watched. I think it was the Men in Black 3 movie when Will Smith's character Kay goes back, or Jay goes back in time, and he ends up meeting young Kay. I remember when I watched that, I was always like, "Dang, like that was a really good choice."
Feels like Kay.
Yeah.
Like this dude got the point of the character. Like,
oh yeah, if there's anything that can be said for Josh Brolin is that he does not. You get what you pay for with him. He does not. He could get away with being that, Hollywood good-looking guy that can just walk, bullshit his way through any role. But Brolin really is. Man, it'd be cool if he showed up in this show. But yeah, so if you liked that, you're absolutely going to be not just blown away by the fact that, yeah, basically that's an excellent comparison. Actually, that's perfect because that's exactly how the younger versions.
The effort is very similar.
Yeah,
like Brolin took all the time to mimic the other actors' mannerisms that he had already established in previous movies, and then these actors in this show did the same thing. Like they literally just look like more agile versions.
Like I was looking closely when they first introduced young. Actually, I don't even think we know his real name yet. But when he introduced young Jeff Bridges, I had to keep looking at just like, is this like a de-aging? What's going on here? And no, they happen to pick an actor. They probably used some makeup and maybe a little
honestly, dude,
touch-ups, but
the actor they picked could have played Jeff Bridges or Liam Neeson. I really got both of those people. Like he kind of had young Liam Neeson's lankiness.
Yeah.
But one other thing that it really got me about this show is the attention to detail in what feels like supporting roles. because this is obviously like a more military FBI situation. There's one character that we barely know, but he seems to be more than just a filler. I think we're going to get to know him in more episodes as it goes on, but he plays the role of an operator, like an actual special operations operator, to a T. Every time his inclinations are, like his spidey senses tingle, he registers it, records it. He looks at coincidences that he doesn't like, and he just figures them out the way an operator would. Like, he doesn't push needles like in other shows where like suddenly the badass becomes really badass till he gets his information. No, like this operator's acting like a real operator. He's like, you were just on the phone and he got away. Is something I should know? And he's like, do I look like somebody you should mess with?
Mind your own business, Junior.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, and then just walks off.
Yeah.
And then there's also a point where he stares at him. That was such a good line. He's like, do you know who I am? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, do you know how I got here? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, do you think I let anybody think they could mess with me? And he's like, no. He's like, then stop staring at me so I can know that you're not messing with me, or something like that.
Yeah,
and just
put it back in your pants.
Yeah, and you're just, oh man, like you can see how like badass John Lithgow's character is. Like he's not even this like nerdy third alien that's landed on the third rock from the sun.
Yeah.
He is a very, very clear assistant director of the FBI.
Yeah, John Lithgow and badass. Not exactly a descriptor you'd ever expect.
Jeff Bridges in BA, same thing.
Well, I mean, you're right. In this context, I agree. I would say that Jeff Bridges was a badass.
I mean,
go ahead.
I mean, with Jeff Bridges, I mean, he has done like action style roles before, though. To be fair.
What did
I can't think of one of them.
I know, I'm having a hard time.
And R.I.P.
Oh, that's right. True Grit, one I still need to see.
But both of those.
Iron Man.
He had the same approach of like very similar
wasn't really
to this character actually, but those were still. True Grit was definitely, but that was Western. That I feel like that he portrayed a cowboy perfectly.
Right, you don't expect like a Keanu Reeves or Matt Damon style of badass agent when you think of Jeff Bridges, but that's fair point.
Yeah,
you're right. He has been in action.
This is way more James Bond Jeff Bridges, which doesn't feel like it should fit, but it does.
Did you say John Lithgow?
Yeah.
Okay, I was just making sure I heard right.
Yeah, no, John
Lithgow.
Up,
right? And now you're like, okay, now I'm confused at how they can say they're good at this.
No, I mean, I'm not that. It's like it's a thing of like. It's not surprising
when
to me.
you watch them, even as you're watching them do it well, you're constantly going, I did not think this was going to happen. I did. You're like, wait, I know they're going to fumble this. I know they're going to, oh man, I'm kind of scared of him now.
And then you start asking, why this never happened sooner. And then it's like, because it's really well written. We can absolutely say the writing is amazing.
On Twitch.
Oh, we do?
The video just went unavailable at Air 5000. Not sure if that was my fault or.
I think it's your fault because I'm receiving.
My fault. All good.
No, it's saying it restarted. Huh. That's weird. Whatever. It's Twitch. Who cares? No.
Hey, Twitch.
It's it's amazing. It's very well written. And that's why we're not doing the formula for this one, because I loved every minute of every episode was worth my time. These are characters that are worth getting invested in.
This show did such a great job in being a fun story that if you do try to break down the beats, it sounds really boring. Like if I were to label every instance that happened, it would probably, like for the first 10 minutes, it's like the life of an old man and a phone call with his daughter and realization that things are not going the way just none of it
going to the doctor.
Yeah, And so like when you think about it, it's like the beats all don't sound fun, but as you're watching it, it feels quick. It feels like there's something going on. The music behind it, everything about it just feels flowing, you know? It's really impressive, and it's one of the more fun shows that I've seen, especially when it comes to the idea of like a TV show being similar to 24 when there's so many other things that are better than 24 these days. But if you think about it, they're not really much better. Like, even though 24 became very formulaic and you always knew it was going to happen, we don't really see anything that garnered that kind of watch support. But watching this, I could see it just booming instantly.
Will Jack Bauer solve the problem in 24 hours? Yep. This season, will he be able to solve it within 24 hours? Yep. The stakes are high. The terrorism level threat is beyond dark red. Will Jack Bauer in 24 hours? Yep. There was. It never became 48.
Like how? It becomes how.
Yeah.
It becomes how does this happen? What happens next?
Well,
and that's what's so fun.
It's clear that Jack Bauer was able to pull it off in 24 hours because he secretly was actually the original first Avenger, but you know, Marvel just scrapped that idea because it was stupid. Anyway, no, it's a bad joke. Yeah. It does kind of feel like the pacing and progression is very much like 24. Like I said, the action doesn't feel forced or contrived. It was really hard to watch some of those action scenes, not because you're cringing. Well, I was cringing, but I wasn't cringing because I was like, oh, this looks so fake, like Harrison Ford throwing punches in Indiana Jones. No, it felt fake. I cringed because I was like, they're actually treating this like an old man out of practice, out of touch with the world, and needs to be able to get his strength back, and needs to overcome these obstacles. And you're like, he's fighting these younger guys, he's getting his ass handed to him. How does he get out of this? And that's what I really loved about it, was the fact that he got out of the situations in believable ways. And
yeah,
so,
and not only in believable ways, but you watch him adapt. Because there's this fight with a younger, more capable operator, and that operator is winning. And you see him adapting in real time, and he's getting more hits in as the fight goes on. He's getting more swings in. And that's where I'm going to leave you.
Yeah, Brandon,
but,
you really...
Like, you see him learn.
Yeah.
There's a lot of lines in it, but there's this one theme that seems persistent for the first 2 episodes, and it's, you have no idea how much the company has evolved since you left.
Right.
But then also at the same time, how good is the best if they can't truly adapt to the time they're in now? Those seem to be the 2 running themes, and I'm like, that sounds like a really fun experience.
Yeah, and I like the build up of the story. Like I said, the pacing's good. The characters are all interesting. Even the woman that he meets in the process. I found, oh my gosh, that whole Corione's back. Youth and exuberance will always be beaten by old age and treachery. That's pretty much what we have in this show.
Change treachery to planning.
Yeah, meticulous.
With wisdom comes knowledge of what could and couldn't happen, so be prepared.
Yeah,
like more Boy Scout than ever.
Yeah, don't underestimate your foes, and I think that's why the agents had trouble trying to get him controlled, was because they thought, this is an old guy. He doesn't know it. He doesn't even know what a QRC is. Quick reference card. I bet he doesn't even know how a computer works. We got this guy in the bag. It's easy, and of course that. Well, I always say that we don't have an issue with doing spoilers, yet I don't want to.
Well, the reason I don't want to do spoilers for this one especially is because 1, Brandon hasn't seen it, and 2, get in on this, man. If you're already watching Orville with us, get in, watch it, and follow along. And the reason we can't, one of the bigger reasons we can't is because we didn't tell you we were watching it this week.
Yeah,
we switched up our schedule.
Changed up the lineup, and so no, it's totally. But I'm telling you, it'll be worth your time, and anyone watching this right now, like this is a show you don't want to miss. It is one that is, like I said. Notice we had general discussion on. We're just doing general discussion because
skipped right to it.
I liked everything so far, and I'm excited for the next episode this week. Like, I'm genuinely excited for a show, and
honestly, I'm getting a lot of vibes from FX that like I used to get from FX.
Yeah.
Like what they did with their what is it? Justified, still one of my favorite.
I still need to watch more of that, but I've watched a few episodes. Yeah, that's some quality television. And so if you like Justified, John, would you say that people would like The Old Man?
Oh yeah. No, if you're looking for what FX used to do, before, I want to say there was one after The Americans that really started to go downhill. But if you like their old stuff, like back when they were releasing the original 4 seasons of American Horror Story, that kind of action show that they would release before American Horror Story, this is right there. It's right back to that old formula of fun stuff to watch. Like, you enjoy every second of it. It's really good.
Yeah, and it's based on a book too.
Dude, this could be Archer. This could be the story of where Archer went after dying.
Yeah. Spoilers. Anyway. Yeah, so anything else you want to add on to The Old Man? I mean, I know it's kind of a quick discussion, but it's I can't, honestly, it's just going to be more praise for me, because this is what...
Well, Brandon, do you have any questions about it?
I mean, not really. I also am the type where, like, I'd rather know less, usually.
Well, that's just it, though, too. Even with the 2 episodes and exposition, the exposition was really just kind of more character building. It wasn't really a whole lot. We have no idea, unless you've read the book. And I don't know how closely it's following the book right now, which is why we'll definitely be reading after the show airs to do a comparison. But we don't know anything in those, and that's what really blows me away, is that they managed to slow drip these first 2 episodes and really set up. Dude, this was a great opening pilot. That wasn't, fast, got to get to the next scene. It was a proper slow burn. And I think it's going to work for this show in the long run. I think
and that was the great thing, is like the speed was in the fast scenes.
Yeah.
They were set up appropriate to be as fast as they were, and you're like, oh, and then it's over. And you're not like there's no breaks, there's no hard stops. It's just like flow. And it's really fun.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the show. I think anybody that actually gives it a shot, but also like there should be some warning. It is military. It is killing and murder and espionage and borderline on. It's in the territory of what every conspiracy theory hopes is actually real. Like, there's one good guy in the swamp, and we're getting to see something more drawn out, but in the perfect areas, like where they take their slow time. They're explaining stuff that really matters, and it feels like it matters to the whole show. Like, it feels like if you miss a sentence, you miss half the puzzle. And I think that's really, really important, especially in like with modern television. Like, when you watch a show, you don't want to have to feel like 80 minutes could have been skipped between the beginning and the end, and now I know what's going on next episode.
Looking at you, Walking Dead.
Yeah, even if you're gonna hype up a cliffhanger, like, you gotta have no cliffhangers before, otherwise we just get used to the cliffhanger. And I feel like this show didn't really leave a cliffhanger. All it did was just make me want to watch the next episode.
I have no idea what's going on, and I'm not chewing my nails off either. It's very much, it's just a good show, honestly. Like, I can't say that enough. Like, this is just good television. It's just good, solid entertainment. It's not popcorny, but you can eat popcorn. You enjoy popcorn watching it, but it's not a popcorn show. It's not a popcorn flick. It's a very just raw, this guy's been just trying to live out his retirement in peace, and now he's been found, and we don't know why. We don't even know why. Why was he located? We don't even know why that happened. And so that just makes it even more interesting.
Why is so limited in reality. Like, it's so good at teasing you, just like a good book does, where the first chapter hooks you and you're like, man, I know for a fact there's a horrible thing about to happen to this whole world I've never read about. I'm in. And that's exactly what we got. Like, I think maybe we got the first 2 chapters, but like this really just felt like I don't know anything.
I'm even excited to read the book.
I've got to know the characters a little bit, but I don't know anything.
I'm even excited to read the book too. So when the show's done, I definitely think we should make time to read the book, and hopefully it's the same. I don't know. Maybe I'll see some in there. But with that, I think it's time to get Brandon's opinion a little bit more on display for this show. So we're gonna go ahead and transition topics to this week's episode of Strange New Worlds. That was strange, to say the least, and this week is likely to get stranger.
Do me a small favor, because I had to watch the previous week's and this week's.
Oh.
Which one was this recent one?
This was the one that that basically the captain and the crew get kidnapped by Orion slavers. Well, they're not even really slavers. They're kind of more like pirates. They don't really have a.
They were.
They're definitely more of a rogue faction on the Orion Syndicate. At least that's how it came off to me. I didn't feel like they were part of the main. But do you need a couple seconds to refresh, or do you want to go ahead and kick us off with what you did not like?
What I did not like? Well.
Oh, bye, John.
Gee. I mean, I knew who the villain was very early on. As much as I liked the episode, which is what I was kind of talking to John about earlier, that I was probably going to have what would be more or less a hot take in this scenario. It doesn't help that I watch a lot of stuff. I've consumed a lot of media over the years, so like it sometimes can be kind of hard to like fool me, if you will, when I'm watching something. Like in real life, sure, but like when watching things, I kind of will pick up on context clues really well, because that's the part that interests me the most. And so like super early in the episode, I was like, oh, she's clearly a villain. Like just was just like, oh, you're evil. Like I don't know how or where it's gonna go, but you're evil. And then as soon as she started talking about the slavers, I was like, oh, you clearly know more. How is no one, like, how are you rationalizing me? No one on the ship is picking up on what you're saying. Now, her interactions with Spock, I will give as fair enough. Like, I don't think when she had direct interactions with him that it was, like, too overt in certain ways. Which I do like, because it showed that she had dealt with, his type more or less before. So that was kind of cool. That was fine. But like her generally speaking to the captain stuff, talking about the whole like the point of where they're going and who they're looking at, and anytime the pirates got brought up, it was just like so apparent that she knew more than what she was saying, and it was just let to ride out. So like it was just like, oh, you're clearly like either you're part of them, which would be the stereotypical turnaround. Like that's not even a clever, that's a standard basic, super basic trick, if you will. Like that's not, like it was just like the whole time I was like, oh my god, you're just so clearly. And then what to the icing for me was when she showed up at Spock's room wearing that black outfit, and I was like, oh, how like clearly sexy villain are you trying to go for? Like this is just apparent. This is abhorrently apparent. Like you've not hidden this from me at all. Like you've just thrown it in my face further. Like get away from me. That was honestly, like, for the most part, I liked it. I can see with the point you made earlier that some of the cooking stuff and the way Pike was talking was definitely like on the cheesier end of the spectrum. I would make the argument that fits really well into the version of Pike that's being portrayed in general. Like, that does fit that character. Whether or not it's successful, you can argue that, and if it makes sense that it worked. They did very clearly make the green dude an idiot from the get-go. Like, just incredibly stupid. But, like, as far as Pike is in that scenario, I felt it fit the character, if nothing else. Cheesiness, even more so, because he's very much, like, the dad type. Like, making, like, the joke John that he makes at the end, it's very much, that's a dad joke all day. Like, it amused me, but also, like, come on, buddy. Like, buddy.
I mean, this is one of those moments where it, you know, I can understand people not particularly liking the way that Ortegas responds to the captain, which, you know, that's kind of old guard versus new guard going on there.
Yeah.
However, I was like, if this was in his room and he was playing pirate while cooking for the crew again, whatever. But you're literally sitting on the bridge, okay, on watch, and you decide to make a cringy remark that if I was sitting on that bridge, I would have been like, "Hey, Starfleet Command, yeah, I'm gonna need to go somewhere else besides the. Yeah, I'm aware. I fought for this position on the Enterprise, made a big deal about it, but you know what?
Worst case, dishonorable discharge. I don't even care anymore.
Just put me on a garbage freighter. I can't.
See, I don't know. See, the thing for me though is, I have in real life experienced that in a scenario like that of like, did this dude just say that? Like,
are you talking about from your Air Force life?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, definitely.
Please
you deal
share.
with a lot of officers, and every once in a while you get one, and you're just like, oh my god.
You know what? You're right. And I have met some captains and some full birds that I was like, how?
I had a sergeant that would have 100% made that joke after he had gone.
Oh
back
yeah,
to
no,
OCS
I did. I
and
definitely
became a
did too.
lieutenant.
Yeah.
Like, he was the worst at dropping and that, like, even think about it, that joke wasn't that funny, and the timing was just, nobody set him up.
No,
you know, he just ran it. Like, that was 100% dad joke.
Besides,
which
you
is
know
why
what?
I liked it though.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's why I loved it. I thought it was so perfect, and I loved
it was just
the
like,
first
oh,
reaction, the cringe, just
yeah, that was definitely like part of what makes that so fun, is that it was just like, that was some cringy nonsense you just said,
but
and how dare you?
The best part was when the pilot, when she thought it was funny, but she knew for a fact she wasn't gonna brown nose and laugh out loud.
Dude,
Like,
the pilot Ortega? I forget.
Ortegas is the helmsman. Yeah.
Dude, I love the helmsman. The female
the
helmsman
character.
is one of my favorite characters in this show. She's awesome. Like, her and
Honestly,
Pike.
Dude, she reminds me exactly of a sergeant that I had in the military.
Yeah, like,
just always on the ball, knew their job, also willing to help, a little bit too much pep for me as a person, but also that's what you need in somebody like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, just one of my favorite people of all time, and every time I see her, I just think of the similarities between those two people. I really like that character.
Yeah,
I definitely enjoy the character.
Yeah, and I think Ortegas does definitely have some growing to do, I think, and I do want to see that character develop a bit more. And I think that's why, like her mannerisms get mistaken by the audience, because, you know, they're like, it's like, oh, are you buddies with the captain? It's like, no, that's just how comfortable she is in her position. She's not trying to, like, you know, well, it's hard to say though with Starfleet, because in Starfleet,
well, there's also an element of isn't she an officer?
And that's just it. Everyone's considered equally valuable. The captain doesn't consider himself more valuable than anyone else, and so it's like that. Bringing that dynamic into a military hierarchy is going to change how people perceive and you know, respect is going to shift.
A lot of people don't understand too. Like, military environment is weird.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, because it's like this weird mix of, like, there are times where you need to be incredibly professional on the ball, very rigid and straight lined, like, you have a way you need to be in this moment. And then the other side of that coin is, like, there's all these things you're not supposed to say or do that you're going to say and do anyways. And
long as you're in the right company, and the right company
Yeah,
is almost always the same company you spend every
Mhm.
day with.
Yeah.
once you've worked with the same people enough, it's just like you develop certain levels of like, I know what I can and can't say, and then I also know what I can say to either get at you or be funny because I know
Well,
your
yeah.
humor.
Yeah, it's really one of those things where like I know all the digs that are inappropriate and
Mhm.
appropriate.
Yeah.
So I'll never say the one that brings up your worst traumatic memory, but I'll get all the way up on that line because I know what that line is because I've met you
I'll
and I've
edge
talked
right
to
up
you
there.
for a long time. And I think that's really what we're actually getting is a real crew dynamic. I think one of the differences between a lot of the other Star Treks is they assumed that like rank meant everything,
Well,
even in those informal situations like the fog of war. In the fog of war, if your captain is not doing their job, especially in American doctrine, your job is to take over. Cover
Yeah.
them down, don't just like do anything crazy, but like you cover down and fix the situation even if it's overstepping your commander.
Well, the other thing is too,
Because-
in those Trek shows though that you're watching now, Next Gen and whatnot, those were written by people who had experience in a military that doesn't exist anymore. The
and that too,
dynamic
that's
has
another
changed
big
so
thing, too.
much.
It was crazier back then.
Yeah.
It was.
and
it
that's
was
mostly because a lot of things didn't get out. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of the teachings from the military were really bad. There was a major attrition rate to medical issues, and those medical issues were due from physical trauma, which means that like people were getting hurt when they should have been basically borderline football players, NFL players, in terms of physical athleticism, physical training, and paying attention to their physical health. And in the back in the day, we still don't even have that for football players with concussions and stuff. But I think that's what we're really seeing is an evolved Starfleet. It really did feel exactly like I spent a few times in really higher up meetings with colonels and generals and light colonels, and in those meetings, the colonels and the generals like
You mean Lieutenant Colonel?
7 or 8 light colonel, yeah.
No.
Diet colonel.
No.
Say diet, Colonel. Oh my God.
For those
Are we
in the
talking about
not know
popcorn
who've
now?
never been in the military, Lieutenant Colonel is the equivalent of an 04.
Ugh.
Yes, and
Or
but
no, wait.
when you
Nope,
get
I
into
was
those-
wrong. 05. It's an 05. Colonel
Yeah,
is an
05,
06.
and then 06 is colonel, and then
Full bird,
07
yeah.
is brigadier general.
That even depends on branches, but yeah, go ahead.
True. But anyway, so like I've been in those meetings where there have been colonels and generals and light colonels and majors and pretty much all of the
Lieutenant
officer
colonels.
corps, and I'm the one guy in there meant to scribe, and not even really scribe. Like I was just brought there because my lieutenant or my major was brought there.
scribe?
And
What's a scribe?
it's an ancient Mesopotamian position of somebody who wrote.
The oldest job in the
And in
military.
the case of the military, it's somebody who takes notes on the meeting, but not necessarily a stenographer where they take every minute.
Kind of
Yeah,
like a
and-
yeoman in Star Trek.
A good
Yeah.
example is like the other side of that coin of like what John is saying. Like I've seen that where I've also been in a position where I had to brief my commander. My flight chief was present. The flight chiefs of the other departments that were part of my part of the unit at the time, which was the maintenance unit, not the flight line anymore. And at that, and that wasn't just like a meeting. That was like basically a briefing for the week or for the previous week. In which case, that one is held differently than even like what John is talking about. Because I've been in situations where I've seen what John's talking about. But like when you're giving just like factual information
very
briefings,
similar to these briefings as well, to the ones you're about to describe.
yeah, in those ones though, instead of having as much jovialness because of like the specific people being present and they're not all like the same level, it's like a bunch of enlisted individuals and then like the commander and maybe one or two officers, and you're going this and this. It's like this weird. It's like a weird tonal shift where it's like, all right, we're here to give you a briefing on specific information, facts. I saw this happened. This is what this relates to. Like, and I had to do this a couple different times, and it's just like I think that's part of what has helped me now too. Like, now I'm the type where I'm like, if I gotta talk to someone like that, it's by then I already was kind of already like this because I got trained by good dudes who thought ahead and was like, you have to be able to inform important people of stuff and tell them straight answers, true or false. So like, I had dudes who helped train me to be prepared for it, but like, you have to give these answers and they're gonna ask questions and their tone might seem harsh, but it's not that they're being harsh. It's, I have a question, you need to have an answer, give me the answer now. Like,
well, and that I think is a really interesting thing, because a lot of the meetings that I went to, and to go like more off on to finish what I was saying about those meetings, is like, it took 4 or 5 or 10 of those meetings before the officers forgot I was there, and then suddenly the officers became the exact people you would imagine people are.
Yeah.
Which is what I feel like this show is like, there is definitely a strong element of decorum. Like, Ortega doesn't interrupt the security chief when she's giving a lesson, but when the security, or when Uhura asks a question towards the security chief, but really just open to the bridge, that's when Ortega jumps in. She's like, let me show that I learned this too and memorized it. And I think that's so exactly military. Like, even if she got yelled at next, I'd have been like, there's always a lieutenant that yells at you for interrupting him. You know, even though she didn't, I'd be like, yeah, some lieutenants are cool with that. Like, I've met a very wide range of officers in the officer corps, and I've met a lot of different higher levels. In the meetings you're describing, Brandon, I think is really funny, because one of the big tone shifts I noticed, because I usually had to prep those types of meetings, is when the hard chargers, if you will, the ones that always showed up 15 to 20 minutes early every single time, they were the biggest goofballs. And then as soon as their lieutenant or their officer that they were paired up with walked in, nothing. There was nothing.
It's just
funny
immediately
about them
straight.
ever.
It wasn't even like, of like, we're about to do this now.
Just like, I'm not going to take the problems. Like, the officer's taking the problems. I'm here to have a good time. He's got a lot to talk about. And then it was even the weirdest thing is, like, as my time went on doing that, there was a lot of times where people would walk up to me and go, hey, my officer's pissed. Do you have answers to these things? And I was like, yeah, just wait. I updated the whole brief. I know it's wrong here. I messed that up. I fixed it, resent it to everybody, and printed it for everyone. And they'd be like, oh, thank God. And these
that'll
were
cost
like
you 3 cartons of cigarettes.
Yeah. Well, dude, no, that was the thing, is like, they stopped treating me like I was
That's the saved your ass discount.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just constantly kept doing my job the right way, and these people were doing their jobs, and when they would approach me, I would show them that I had done my job, and they were like, oh, well then I'm going to treat this person like an adult, because every time they need my back, they have it, and every time I need their back, they don't need me. Like, it works out, and that, I think, is so beautifully displayed in this show. Like, whenever somebody pops up on the projector, it's not like the whole crew's like goofing, like, oh, Captain, by the way, he's like, I'm trying to talk to the Admiral.
Yeah, like, I'm talking to a possibly wartime enemy. Like,
what? Daddy's on the phone.
Shut up. Like, if you're in that situation, you're already boned. Like,
Even think about it. Like, Orville is the perfect example of a ship that's a lot more loose.
Mm-hmm.
Because they do make their snarky remarks, but the Enterprise, no.
But on the same note,
flagship, we are the pure professionals of pure professionals.
We're the best of the best, and everyone's got a sad backstory.
That same skin, though, like, there are times where they'll wait. They still wait until after someone bloops away. Very early on, I think it's in the first series. It's one of the first few episodes. I forget their 2 names, but it's the guy that eventually becomes the engineering dude and the main pilot man in Orville. And
they
have a call come up.
Malloy.
Yeah, there's a call that comes up on the screen, and I keyed on it too, so it was even funnier. But like, this whole time this dude's talking, back behind him on a couch is a cat just going to town. And he cuts off, and they lean back, and they're like, So you saw that cat licking his balls, right?
Yep.
And he was like, "Oh yeah, no, for sure. That's all I could look at."
All I could
like-
see. Yeah.
And I was just
Yep.
like, "Oh, dude."
So
That's when I was like, "I'm gonna like this show."
was there was there anything else we didn't like about Strange New Worlds, at least? Actually, you know what, I'll address one of this stuff more from the fans, not so much from myself exactly. There were some people that felt the conversations between Spock and Villainous of the Week, that they said it came off as more like woke. Now, I could see where you could get that from, but the problem is, it wasn't, the conversation was about Spock's racial identity. And the statement that she made, I actually agree with 100%. Spock is Spock. He's not a Vulcan, he's not a human, he's not required to be one or the other. He's uniquely him. That was the message that I got from it. So I actually kind of like that, but go ahead.
No, yeah, see, for me, I think, of course you can think it's woke, but it's more like 1960s woke, when people like Alan Watts were saying, stop trying to be what everybody thinks you should be and be yourself.
Yeah.
Like, it really does kind of feel more like Rome wasn't built in a day kind of imagery, like you'll become the thing you want to be, but you have to put in the work, right?
I mean,
like mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. It just seems like one of those things you could get tweeted at any point and you'd be like, oh, that's inspirational, thank you, I'm gonna go to the gym today.
I'm 14
Right.
and this is deep.
But when it comes to Spock, like, everything I've ever known about Spock is that he 100% was told he wasn't good enough by both parties. And if even if we think about everything we know about American racism, that's like a lot of what minority people have to deal with, is they're just, more than anything, told they're not acceptable enough. And so Spock living his whole life on Vulcan and always being like half human, like, oh, look at that half human scum, like, if anything, this is like a representation of what it's like to suffer ostracization. And even though you are considered a beloved member of a crew, you still have no idea what your grand purpose is, because everybody else has said your grand purpose is garbage. And that's like, it's like really hard. It's like, I can't be garbage.
Yeah,
And
the
you
character,
have to fight that your whole life.
the character of
And that's what we
Spock,
see in Spock.
this character of Spock has always been relatable in many different ways. And you touch on one of the other ones where somebody of different ethnic background, some of them have said that, you know, while it is inspirational that Uhura's on the bridge, and then you have a Russian and see, Sulu was Japanese, you have a Japanese man driving the ship, and they're all working together. I mean, the whole idea was there. Spock was able to give more commentary in the original series because he was an alien, because the commentary didn't have to be as direct. But he also was
not only an alien, he was a white alien.
right, and
So
he was
got to play the role that those people were proving
yes,
needed to
exactly.
be played.
And that's what his character is related to, not just from that, but also from lonely nerds that didn't have any friends, were picked on in high school. He was that outsider that people could relate to, because on the Enterprise, he's highly respected and appreciated for his and that's kind of what we're seeing as the development into that Spock with Strange New Worlds. And so I think it was I think they're doing a pretty good
Well, I
job.
think it's an absolute double entendre if you think about it, because not only on the Enterprise is he respected as a crew member, but he's respected as a Vulcan friend.
Yes.
So while he was on Vulcan his whole life and everybody was like, you half human scum, I hate you, everybody's like, meet my Vulcan friend.
Yeah, everybody's proud to know him and proud to consider
And
him
so
a
if you
friend.
think about it, like, how much does that mess you up? If your whole childhood, your whole life is spent being, you'll never amount to anything, and then the one time you try to leave your culture and you succeed and it works perfectly, well then how correct is everything you've ever learned your whole life about your culture? It's like you have to literally fight your history while simultaneously living your future all day, every day. And I think that's a conundrum that there are a ton of people in this world that suffer, especially anybody that, you know, isn't where they're from, right? Like, I'm from buttfuck Idaho, and that's my one swear. And I'm
Language.
saying that because when I was living here and growing up here, there was maybe 100,000 people in the Treasure Valley across 3 counties. Now it's starting to pop up and it's starting to be a big city. But I grew up as a hick kid in a hick town, and all I know is small city living. And so now when I watch city folk like complain about the world, like they know what's going on, and being a hick kid, I'm like, you guys don't even know about having to deal with farming students. Like, you think all kids get up at 6 in the morning to get ready for school at 8 in the morning to go to school and spend their time? No, some of them get up at 3 in the morning, farm their daddy's farm, and then drive themselves to school at 13. That's a reality where I'm from. And I think this show is really, really playing on it. No, it still is. You can still get your license at 13 if your parents sign off that you're a farmer, because you have to drive the machine.
Well, yeah, you're not gonna find that as much in Boise anymore these days, though. But definitely out where I live.
I think one thing to keep in mind with that thought too is like, it's really easy, and I'm gonna be saying this as like a broader tense than just this situation, but it's super, 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 super easy to take something out of context and make it be anything. Once something is taken out of context, it, depending on obviously what specifically you take, it could mean anything. It can be twisted to mean one thing or another, good or bad, what have you. But that's why I'm such a stickler about context. When people ask me questions, I'm like, all right, what's the context of the question so I can understand where we're going with this. And when you think about the context of like this situation specifically too, like, I thought for sure I was gonna hear you specifically, PD, talk about how the level of emotion that he ends up showing in this episode, or at least or portraying, and how that doesn't work. And my thoughts on it were like, it kind of does work though, because she, meaning the villainess, we'll say, because I can't remember her name.
Both of the women in this episode in Spock's life,
also
were treading
that,
the line of experiencing more emotion.
But also, she knows his brother that he hasn't met, and has basically shunned all of the Vulcan ways of logic over, emotion and stuff. So there's a certain level of like, even if he's done that, he didn't start off day one fully in hand with his emotions. She more than likely, you can take for probably granted that she probably saw different phases of that. So she knows the kind of things to get into that and like chink at that armor and like kind of push him subtly at first. And she does.
Chink at that armor in a like let me distract you kind of way, but more in a let you join us kind of way.
Exactly. So like, even more, it's that thing of like, I want to try and shove you to then pull you in, and like,
yeah, I want to push you out of Starfleet window and into my window.
And into my window. So like, she's that's why like I made that point earlier of like, all the scenes where it was just the two of them I really liked, because Spock tried to maintain his standard way of being, but she was trying very clearly trying, but without like over trying. Like, she was doing a very good job. No, like, the actress did a really good job.
That she had the restraint of somebody who knew what she was doing.
Yeah. And so the reason I end up liking the end for that then too is Spock then does something that I liked, of like, he was able to then take the intelligence he has, because he's incredibly intelligent, and then take where she had already pushed him, and instead of falling into what she was trying to have him do, used it against her and used that as his own strength to try and then change the situation. And I really liked, I was like, all right, I really dug that whole like in-scene sequence and stuff, because I was curious where it was gonna go, and then when he makes that remark to the medical chief, I was just like, no, is he gonna do what I think he is? And then he did, and I was like, he did.
Yeah, and I like that I like that they still respected the character, because he doesn't lie at any point.
No,
basically
yeah.
says, I need you to pay attention, and Nurse Chapel picks up on it right away, and so that's
Oh yeah,
that's when
and
they're
because
able
she's incredibly smart too. Like she
Yeah.
No,
she
and I
immediately.
have you guys noticed the display of intelligence in this show?
Oh,
There are
dude,
so
yeah.
many times where they show us and tell us everything that's about to happen, but if you don't understand the science that they're describing or the plan that should exist, like when Spock told her what he was about to do, I was like, dude, that's some George Clooney Ocean's 13 stuff. Like that's what I like to see. Like, yeah, play your mark and tell your team so your team can play with you.
Yeah,
But there was no like other setup. It was purely just Spock realizing, doing all the math in his head, going, follow my lead. And she's like,
also he does a
oh,
he
and then
does
she
the good thing of
does.
yeah. He also does the good part of that too, of like, not only does he hints to her what he's gonna do, but he also makes the point of saying it in a way where it's not like too apparent to people standing next to him. He's just like, I apologize for any, what was it? It's like, I apologize for any,
for coming off too forward or being
I forget what he says, but
forward.
basically like, I'm gonna end up doing something, and please don't be mad. Like this is the best I got right now. And at first
like
you
super
get
ambiguous that only
Yeah.
two friends would be able to interpret.
And then with her being intelligent, like one thing I do like is the actress does make a point of looking at him like, what? And then sees what he's
Yeah.
saying and goes, ah, got you. I'm down. We
And
got
then-
this.
But then she still took a second. Like it wasn't until Spock got into like trouble or started to like stutter that she was like, we're seeing each other. So Spock didn't have to lie. Like
Yeah.
every setup as far as who Spock is and who she is as Spock's friend matched. Because Spock couldn't lie. Instead, he just had to enunciate that he was having feelings for somebody.
Yeah.
And that, like,
And he
in
struggled
human terms
too.
is a lot. But in
Yeah.
Vulcan terms, it's like, well, you're half human. So feelings could literally mean thoughts or anything. And then the resolution, right? Where T'Pring is like, yeah, you have feelings. And
Which is
but you have feelings
becomes
only
a
for me. And he's
bittersweet
like,
moment
yes.
too, though, because it becomes this moment where it's clear Spock begins to realize like there may have been more to what I was saying than I realized, but also because like he even the way he responds to her is very much like that moment of like, yes, you're right. Thankfully we both understand, and it's that
It was
moment
kinda
of like
one of those
I'm
moments
agreeing
where he
with
was
you.
hoping the breakup stood.
Yeah, like in the back of his mind, he's like, "Oh, I'm in trouble." Like he's like, "I'm in a dangerous spot now." And then the conversation he has with the medical lady is very much clears that down, where you can see where she's now like even like she makes the statement she makes, but also you can see that she's wavering and she's unsure of what's going on now. And oh, dude, it was so
Yeah,
so
if
good.
anything,
It
this was the
so juicy.
best rom-dram I've ever seen on Star Trek. Like, this is actual romantic lovers triangle drama, and I've never seen Star Trek actually get it right without going too hard into the tropes of the lovers triangle, where it's
To
like
be fair,
very
a lot of things
clearly
are like
one
that.
of them has to die. But in this instance, it's like, how do you... T'Pring is basically a lawyer of some kind, and the nurse is on the Enterprise, and Spock is supposed to be the epitome of virtue, right? And logic. And virtue is logical. So, like, how do we resolve this? And we don't know, because it's not resolved.
Yeah, and by having T'Pring even realize what was happening, and like, which I think, interesting enough, like it wasn't directly said, I do think it will become relevant later, that it'll be a thing of like, her coming to that conclusion was it won't be probably word for word for this, but like, you'll get what I mean. It'll be a situation where she came to the conclusion, likely out of a certain level of assumption of that he couldn't possibly have done that.
Dude, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Couldn't
she was like,
possibly
"This is
actually
the
be getting
ultimate
feelings for
proof
someone
of
else."
His love for me is that he's
So, like, the
sacrificing
thing
his
is-
life for my
Mhm.
job.
The thing at stake won't be someone's like life of living. It will be that what will be at stake is like the respect and image that is held by everyone, because now it's all in this fragile balance, just hanging by threads. And it's like, where are the sticks gonna fall now? And that is so fun to watch. And
Yeah.
they're doing a good job. Like, it doesn't, like, where Pike was super cheesy with his takeover of the ship, which I did love, though. I loved in like the dumbest, because it was clear he was clear from the beginning. He's like playing this dude, but he's so stupid. Like, the dude's just like,
it works
I know
so
what I'm
well.
doing. Yeah, it works
because they're a tiny ship,
Uh-huh.
and they're a tiny ship of like what 30 people, and those 30 people are missing their commander.
And the dude that's in charge is that dude that's like, how did this dude get the stick? Like, how did he draw straws and win? Like, he's the dumb one.
Like, the whole front of the ship, or the captains, you know, the bridge crew are the ones that went and decided to infiltrate the Enterprise, and now we're left with, you know, Malloy.
John, I have the comparison for you of who this man is, and you're gonna understand it. And I apologize to PD, you might not get it right away. He's the dude that becomes freshly in charge of like your unit, and then comes up with this fantastic idea for mandatory fun on a Saturday where we're gonna grill, and it's gonna be this great time.
I get exactly where you're coming from.
But only he's grilling,
Yeah, but
and
only
he's
grilling.
never grilled before.
Yep. Bring your families. It'll be a great time. Like, I would rather sit at home and stare at my drywall with
Dinner's
my
late.
kids.
And it's burned.
That's exactly right. And you've
And
been
not
here. Somehow it's burnt, but the inside's not cooked, and you're like, how? How did you do this? Like, this is somewhere. This is impressive.
Like, yeah,
That in a bad way.
We eat everything over well done out in Oklahoma. What, you've never been to Oklahoma before? Oh, how have you never been there? It's like a small town with 20 people in it. It's where I'm from.
Mandatory fun on the weekend.
Mandatory fun at all. I hated mandatory fun, and that's
like I like company picnics and stuff, but
mandatory fun because I got so drunk for the free bus ride. Every time. I did not
got
care.
to actually
I was going to be blacking out by the time the day started.
you got to do mandatory fun in a place where that's a little bit more acceptable,
there was
so to speak.
there was no bus for us.
No, if you couldn't hold your blackout self, you got caught and got in a lot of trouble. It was an expert skill to be that dumb.
The mandatory fun days when I was stationed in Key West were, it was like, okay, we're in Key West, Florida, guys, and there's a plethora of bars that we can do. We can do mandatory fun activities that people want to do, because you might find this hard to believe, but men and women in the United States Coast Guard, they like to drink alcohol.
No.
I know, shock. But even then, there's not just places that necessarily just have to go to bars, but there's plenty of other places. And no, it's always the military bases, barely maintained fucking crap shack. Oh, that's two.
You've been to Vegas?
That's just no. It's literally a shack that is garbage. And this is like, guys, it's fun. We're having fun. We're grilling. Oh, but hey, remember, no more than one beer an hour. Only if you're driving, you need a designated driver. You need to wait 20 hours before you can drive again. Which, it's like, okay, but we have to drive all the way out here from Key West to this other key that's way out of town.
Even worse than that, in Japan, we would have some officers that would be like, my kids are telling me that you guys have just been the greatest people, hanging out, making the kids have a great time. Be like, oh, so this wasn't mandatory fun day, this is mandatory babysitting.
Yeah, there you
Thanks for the
go.
sobriety.
dope.
Yeah. No, it's the same thing. Like when they tried to push that volunteer crap during port calls, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go volunteer to help do stuff," and then you find out it's you're painting walls of orphanages, and it's like, I was told that the way you described this activity,
I thought I was reading
is
to kids
not
and
right.
being
Exactly.
cool. I didn't
No.
know
Being
manual
interesting.
labor was involved.
Oh man, it's. I don't miss it.
Oh,
I don't miss it. And I hope to see one of those in whether it's Star Trek or the Orville that does it. I want to see a mandatory Fun Day episode, and
Oh, dude,
everyone's
I wanna,
just pissed.
Dude, I want to meet the enlisted.
I want
wanna
it.
see how
I want it
pissed
to be a
they
day.
are, and I want them to be just like the most Marine-esque, like just violent and vicious people. And then like all
Okay.
you see them is just get really drunk,
No,
and it's like the
you gotta-
one time the captain's
Let me-
off the ship, and
let
then
me
they
put
clean
some
it
sprinkles
all
on
up
top for
before
you.
they get on board.
Yeah.
So the sprinkles will be, it'll be one of those scenarios where like Pike and a few of the other like big names are like gone, but they end up in just this garbage situation where they're just constantly like trying to save their lives. Meanwhile, on the ship, the crew is just having a party. And it was like mandatory, so some people are just messed up and like other things are going on. And then like you'll have like a moment where people were laughing and then some people look bored and it like flashes back to Pike just like just sprinting through a
Dude,
cave.
that would be the best. Mandatory Fun Day. Pike sets it all up. There's this
Yep,
whole
he sets it
scene
up
where the
and then has to
enlisted are
leave.
just complaining for hours, and then somebody walks up to him after his speech. Sir, we've got a problem on the ship, and we're gonna need to talk to you, and you might need to beam down to the planet. And then he dips out.
And then he has to
Exactly.
dip out.
Always
it would be
happens.
the most.
It's
that
always
would be the most relatable. Like, oh no.
It's always right when the commanding
the-
officer gives his big speech about how great things are and how great they are as a leader and how you're doing things. Then it's like, oh hey, sir, we just gotta call. You gotta go back to base. We got good stuff we gotta do. Oh,
But even
but
better-
I was just gonna
even-
enjoy this mandatory fun barbecue with everybody. Oh no, I gotta go.
Even better, it's like
Bullshit.
the security officer's the one left in charge or something, and she's just stuck with the enlisted, and they're all sober, and she hasn't realized that the captain's left because for some reason she just wasn't told. And then as soon as she finds out, she's like, "Yo, my enlisted brethren, let's go."
All right. So, is there anything else we did like about? I mean, I gotta say, I'll be honest. I was not a fan of this episode overall. I felt it could have been
figured.
better executed, and probably one I'd
Honestly,
skip on future rewatches.
I feel like as far as pirate ships go, as far as especially like I've wanted to see more pirates. I feel like the Belters are the closest thing we've ever gotten to space pirates since Planet Express or Treasure Planet. And I really
you just
think
crossed
that,
like 6 universes in one sentence. That was impressive.
Hey man, Treasure Planet.
in one
Treasure Planet is
attempt
amazing.
to find the phrase Treasure Planet.
We could do a
Uh,
whole episode
no.
on Treasure Planet.
I think this
Treasure
was a
Planet and
very,
AE.
very fun adventure.
We're gonna talk about
Like,
that.
I thought this was a good experience. I thought, as far as the show goes, I know that like there's gonna be Trekkies that have to deal with lore breaks and stuff like that.
So
But
I've decided to rationalize it. I mentioned this, and I'm probably gonna mention this every time we talk about Strange New Worlds, in case any new viewers want to hear it or haven't heard it. One of the other YouTube commentators named Douglas Nelson, which go check out his page, like, subscribe. Really great commentary on just about everything, and he's a really good fair take as well. I really like having him. I hope we can have him on this show someday. But that said, he put it in the sense that since the JJ movies, where the wormhole, caused a time rift and created a whole new reality, that you could, but that actually started. Excuse me, I have to go backtrack. Right before 2009 Trek was Enterprise with the Temporal Cold War. Because the Temporal Cold War changed things and changed a lot of the history, that's why now, follow on Star Trek, you basically just have new timelines. So for me, I kind of view this, I don't take the lore breaks as heavily anymore because that's there. The original series will always be there. No amount of retcons or changes is going to undo the original series. Nothing's going to undo TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise. It's always going to be. So I'm actually at the point where I decided to rationalize this show kind of more as it's its own timeline, and I'm okay with that. You know, if they just
honestly, in this instance, this show actually does feel like its own timeline of everything else. Like that's where the disconnect for Picard and for the other one, Discovery, come in. Is like Discovery tried to do this, but they tried in all the wrong ways. They tried to hit the excitement, they tried to hit the science, they tried to hit the crew dynamic, and they missed. And that's it, they missed. Whereas this one, they're actually taking the time. Like Brandon and I are literally preparing to disagree with the people who love this kind of stuff.
Yeah, you guys had a great...
That might disagree with all the lore. Brandon and I had a great time with them.
You guys just had a great conversation. That's why I didn't interrupt, was because it's like, I'm not gonna, just because I didn't enjoy it, I'm not gonna come and step on anyone who does.
Exactly.
So, and I still like the show, although I'm a little nervous about this week.
That proves restoring respect in the discourse, because if I've known anything about you, there was a time when you would just go, no, nope, I'm not
if you
talking
like
about
something,
this anymore.
If you like this, you're wrong. God, what a loser I was.
One thing I liked too, which kind of is reflective on something I said previously in regards to the show, because one of my biggest complaints for a while was that like every episode the ship was about to be destroyed. Like every time we turn around, the ship was in danger, even though we didn't actually take physical damage until like the 4th episode or something. Like it was just like every time we turned around, it was like, oh no, the ship's in danger. And what I kind of liked was in this episode, the ship was, hostile takeover. People were in danger at one point, but then it became very clear it wasn't the ship was in danger in the sense that it could be sold offshore. Yeah,
this felt like it wasn't the lowest danger.
Yeah, like of everyone, everything present, the ship was the least in danger of being harmed. It was like, oh, I might kill you, but we're here for this man. This is why we're here. The ship's a bonus. We're here for this dude.
Yeah, you guys are just pawns and leverage to get.
Yeah, and I like that because it shifted the stakes. Like, sure, the ship is obviously this big point where they take it over and they shoot people or whatever, but like, it was. Oh, why did my brain just dump his name? Wow.
Pike?
No. Vulcan.
Spock.
Spock was the one that was actually in danger in this scenario. Spock, T'Pring's reputation, like there was things at peril, but not just everyone instantly dying and the ship exploding. Like it changed the stakes to a point where it's like, okay, no, this is more feasible. Like this is I can stick with this.
Yeah, this was definitely one of those times where it felt like the plot armor of the ship not being stolen was, obviously fully active, but at the same time, Spock's emotional health was not safe. Spock's
that was what was in danger from the get-go.
Safe. And that's such a weird conundrum to actually be able to, like we're discussing it. If we weren't, I feel like there's other shows that have tried this and we've just gone, I don't know why the ship was in trouble, but then it wasn't, and that's over. Whereas this one actually made us realize that, you can be an emotional trauma and plot armor can protect the ship, but that doesn't mean the character didn't suffer and you like the character, so you suffered too.
That's been my feelings with Kenobi.
Really well done.
Yep. All right, so now, of course, gotta switch that, comes the final portion of this broadcast, and that is this week's episode 3 of Orville, New Horizons. So,
Bredenbacher.
Gentlemen, what did we not like about this episode?
Stupid.
Okay. Go for it.
I need a plot summary if you want to.
Remind me. This episode was the one where they ended up in the school, right?
So the Orville, pops into orbit.
No, this one was so fun. Oh
the
my
Orville pops
gosh,
into orbit
so much fun on
of a planet. All right, I'll give the quick plot summary, and you all can go nuts. The Orville pops into orbit of a planet that's typically desolate. There's uninhabitable, nobody's there. Sorry for scraping the mic. And they've discovered there's a city, and the scanners are picking up a city. And so, in Orville fashion, they take the captain, the second officer, pretty much all the usual chain of command people, the characters that they want to follow all the time, down into the danger zone. And they discover that their city, after they fly down to it, is now a forest. Which, by the way, got to give a shout out to that shot, that entire one sequence where the ship lands and then they walk out of the shuttle. That was amazingly well put together. Loved it. Then they walk into a forest. They come across, they find a school. Then they go to the school, and it acts like a normal 21st century school. And it's a good thing they brought, Lieutenant 21st Century Encyclopedia along to understand what is going on. And then from there it progresses through a myriad of more illusions until we finally get to our conclusion, which basically results in the Orville getting its own set of sort of Q continuum, Star Trek, except we actually have an origin story for these people. So it was a really cool way to go back to a previous episode and a previous plot conundrum from the last season and bring that into this season while creating a whole new set of variables in the process.
Well, and not only that, if you think about it, it's such a weird conundrum for it to be the inverse. If you think about it, the whole relationship with this society started because of Kelly's interference, and now this episode is brought on by their interference. And I it's so funny you brought up like the usual bridge crew that grows and goes down to the ship, because Seth MacFarlane fully acknowledges it in the episode 2 of his Blue Harvest series when he goes, "We've got 4 or 5 of the main characters on this ship. I think we're gonna be fine."
We're fine. That's such a great line. I love that line. Yes.
But even then, like, I didn't expect anything. 4 or 5 main characters show up on the planet, and I know they're the main characters. I know none of them are gonna die, but I didn't expect that thing to be the main bully. I didn't expect Cthulhu to kind of show up. I didn't expect anything. I honestly thought maybe it was a Kalon psyop.
All right.
Kind of. Honestly, actually, I'm gonna give my ultimate definition of what I thought it was. I thought for sure Kalon had evolved past the war. Like, they had started doing the math, started understanding more, and so they wanted to test how long it would take before the crew killed an insurmountable force, and everything we saw was deter, like get back, get down. And that was something I was like, that's a really awesome conundrum. Like, wow, the Kalon are making them fight their biggest fears, and these humans are proving to the Kalon that despite fear, I'm gonna try to stun this thing rather than kill it. And that wasn't it. That had nothing to do with the story. But that's what I thought the whole time listening.
So is there any specifics of what we did not like about this episode?
Well, I had mixed feelings on the episode.
Yeah, you go for it, Brandon.
I was just trying to think. So, like, for this episode, for me, there was some interesting moments, and I kind of liked the twist at the end, both of them. But also, like, it's like the thing of like I got the point of like what was going on, by the end, looking back on it. But also it felt kind of pointless at the same time. Like, I don't know. I have a weird, like, I can't point to any one thing like I particularly disliked. I don't think there's anything I particularly like. I can be like, I disliked this. It's just like there's a lot of what happens where it's just kind of like, I don't know. It was a weird feeling. Like, there's moments I liked, but the overall was just like, it just felt like where a lot of episodes really delve really well into stuff, and they touch on a topic in this at the very end of it. And like most episodes that deal with a topic and it kind of talks about it and you understand what's happening the whole time, this one, a bunch of stuff happens, and then at the end you get a synopsis of why and how that was relevant. So then the majority of what you witness, like, doesn't matter. Like, at one point, I thought they were witnessing their fears in going into, like, possible deaths based on that. I did notice after, like, the second one that every time they were pretty much about to die, that they would get out. So, like, it was just this thing where it was just, like, it didn't feel, I don't know. I would say it was probably my least favorite episode, but the bar's not high because I've liked so much of the show that if before that, if you had asked me what my least favorite episode is, I would be, I don't know, man, like
whichever one I
mean, that's an easy one for me.
Yeah, right. Like I wouldn't have had any response, so it's pretty easy for me for an episode that I'm like, it's whatever, to be like, oh, this is my least favorite episode because it didn't like enrapture me. Like, my favorite moment was the initial twist at the end where they thought they got away. They're gonna be attacked by the Kalon. Wow, now I forgot his name, but their Kalon is like, no, those are Kalon ships. Like, that moment
was such a fantastic tease.
Oh, it was a tease, but I was gonna say the moment in the cockpit there, on the bridge, right? For me, like, that whole moment was a big tease, and it was a really cool, like, twist when they twist at the end there. That was really well done. That was probably one of my favorite moments. But even more so, like, that moment on the bridge where what's her name that has the huge issue with the fact that he's a Kalon. Charlie, like, the Kalon is like, those are Kalon ships. We need to bounce now. Like, arm the guns. And
But Captain.
Yeah, but the captain.
Isaac's a bad
and the captain's like, why would I not listen to him? Like, he's like it's the thing.
Yeah,
it's
that
the
was
inverse
that
of
was
what
the
happened
tease.
earlier in the episode, where the engineering man who's in charge. Man, I really got to start remembering names one of these days. Lamar is like, no, go down there, and he's like, well, we should maybe wait, like, and investigate more. And he's like, no, we need to get down there. We don't have time. And you know, she pops up again. And so, you know, he's like, all right, cool, that's what you want, then I'll go do it. And he gets up and he goes does it, and they're like, they look, and then him and medical chief lady are both like, we should go back to the ship, this is weird. And then you have the moment later on, which is the exact inverse, where he's like, no, I'm gonna listen to him because he's the only one here who could possibly know if this was happening. Like, he's the only one that could be able to possibly see through because he's not using eyes. He has sensors, and
not only
he's receiving
but,
information.
Like, he knows the technology that they're capable of because he's granted it to the ship before.
He just, yeah, and so what I liked was that inverse moment where he just shuts her down and is like, no, shut up. I'm listening to the dude who I know. He's like, even though some stuff has been questionable and his feelings are questionable, he's like, I know that this individual, like, he's not going to lie to me about this. Even when even if he was going to betray us, he would tell me to my face that he was going to do it. Like, he's very upfront.
He's so much the guy that would be like, sir, I must relinquish my relationship with the Starfleet. I have realized that you have no idea what you're doing, and I am now in charge.
Yeah,
like he wouldn't do it behind your back.
No.
But not only that, to me that was the tease. Because, like, if you think about it, that was Mercer's greatest fear. Which would he do? Would he actually save the ship, or would he, you know, not trust his instinct? Which is like his first instinct with Isaac does exist. Obviously, he too was betrayed, but he knows that there's a difference between first instinct because of yesterday and first instinct because of 10 years of experience.
Yeah.
And that was the tease. Like, we were teased on Mercer's ability to captain because he didn't fail. In the moment where he was most likely to be like Charlie, he told Charlie to shut up. And that shows Mercer. And that to me was like the solidifying fact. Like, that was the moment when I realized for sure this is a Kalon experiment. And I was so confused when it wasn't.
You were like, wait, what? Even I was like, all right, I didn't see that coming. I was like it wasn't it wasn't this cool twist where I was like, oh my god. It was just like, all right, you got me. I didn't see that you definitely got me. Like I don't
don't know
never
if I'm comfortable or uncomfortable. You got me,
Yeah.
but how?
I will say when it revealed her,
their like exponential curve into the future,
yeah,
or that being their last interaction with them for 1,000 years.
I did realize though when it revealed her, even though I wasn't sure where it was going, I did immediately realize what people she was
I knew
from.
exactly
Like
who
I
she
was just
was,
like,
yeah.
oh, that's the shiny people, like the way ahead of us people. Okay,
It was the
where are
portal.
you going with this now? Like what is happening?
Yeah, and it's I really like how it's so I basically said it's a general discussion at this point because we're kind of going back and forth what we did. So I really liked how it really just drives another knife into one of the biggest plot holes of Star Trek Voyager. In Voyager, there's an episode similar to that episode in season 2 that this one references, where Voyager comes across a planet that's living in a much faster state of existence because they're in. I think they said they're like a wormhole or something. It's weird. I'd have to watch it again for more specifics, but basically they live in an accelerated existence, similarly to what we see with the planet that comes in and out of our universe for every 12 days. So in this moment, the Voyager crew, which is lost in the Delta Quadrant, comes across this planet. They get stuck in their gravity well because that they didn't realize that they had flown a little too close. And so while they're there, they basically become icons. Similarly to how Kelly's worshipped, they're the Sky Friends and the Sky Ship, and they become a piece of folklore, like pretty much impacting this planet's development. And the end of it resolves with them, one, having this technology where they can exist at the same time frame as the Voyager crew without leaving their own existence. And so they're able to start exploring space, and they actually pull Voyager out of orbit and set it on its way. Well, this was one of those moments where they should have just waited like a couple of weeks and then been like, hey, we see you guys have achieved warp 30 billion. Want to help out your old pals, the Sky Friends, the Sky Ship? We're a big part of your history. Would you mind just giving us a quick lift home? You don't even have to take, you don't have to take you can take the long way if you want. I imagine we can get there. And that one was one of those moments. That was one of the ways I thought they should have ended Voyager, or would have been a better way. Like they give them a specialized warp core or something. Anything besides that stupid Borg ending. And then this episode, they decide to use that. They don't just have this this planet concept of the week. They actually brought it back, and they played with it a bit, and they gave us the cue, in a sense.
That's what I mean. Is they played with it in such a way that it played with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
so
would
thought
like.
that was so fun. I thought that was such an ode to Seth MacFarlane and all of his ability to write.
Yeah, it was
the fact that he doesn't forget where he's been, no matter which universe, whether it's dealing with Star Wars and Blue Harvest, or it's dealing with Family Guy, or it's dealing with American Dad. Everything he puts his hands on, he requires the universe to be finite. And that means every past moment, if it's gonna affect today, it has to match.
So,
and it worked.
I would go ahead and shift the gears just a little bit. Was there any more specifics of what we like?
I thought it was hilarious, the initial moment where they drag Pilot Boy into the bathroom and beat the piss out of him. That was hilarious. Like of all the people that's there, he is very clearly initially when this
beloved
dude, I have to say when that initially happened, my theory I developed on the spot was, oh, this is some weird memory from when he was in school that they're experiencing. Like, I could totally see him being a character where when he was in high school, he was bullied and picked on, made to give his lunch money to someone, and they're now back in that scenario, and then it didn't happen, and I was like, what? Or the reveal of was it Ronnie or Ronald,
Russell.
whatever, Russell, and he's just this giant ogre, and they're just like, what? Like, that reveal was so good.
I was
like,
so confused.
like it was that moment of like everyone was just like, oh shit. Like,
No, dude,
no.
I went from legitimately going, okay, I wonder what Seth MacFarlane is going to
Yeah, where
try
are we
to
going with
depict
this?
today.
I want to
I wonder
copy.
which Star Trek universe he's gonna do.
I want
And
to
then
copy that
Russell
high school
shows up,
yearbook.
and I just done. I was like,
yeah.
oh my god.
I want a copy of that high school yearbook. I want that
Dude.
I want Russell's
Just-
picture day photo. I want him like participating in chess
Dude,
club,
everyone is classless.
sports.
Yeah.
Exactly. I want to
Him
see that
participating
yearbook.
in events. He's on the rugby team. They always win.
Of course.
Like, it was just like that thing of like, the best part is all the other ones seem weirdly possible, but Russell, Russell
But
was
dude,
the most.
It was the biggest throw, but then when Cthulhu showed up, I was so ready and excited for it. I was like, that's everything I fear about the deep water. And also Cthulhu. Nice.
Yeah, when the flashing light went away, I was like, how could you have not seen this coming?
Yeah,
Like, how could you
I
have
didn't-
not?
I didn't see that. It was when the tentacles went and the
No,
flashing light came
I-
back. I was like, anglerfish. Instantly. I was just like,
Anglerfish.
anglerfish. I know that one. But
Classic.
no, dude. I loved that Mercer got frustrated. He got pissed. He called him out, and they still said, but do you want to die again? Like, what? I was so just like if you think about it, this was a symbolic analogy of drugs. Like, if acid and mushrooms are our current achievement of drugs, right, killing our ego, but then one day we become immortal, so we need new drugs to make our immortality fun, see altered carbon. Then one day that immortality isn't being realized anymore. Why don't I go find life that's experiencing mortality so that we can understand our presence in the universe? Like, that was the weird thing, is her conundrum was not about, getting a joyride on death. Their conundrum was about finding a reason to
He
exist.
forgot how to die.
So what
Yeah,
was
we forgot how to
interesting me
matter.
Yeah.
is I just was able
Actually, I
to draw a
think they
parallel
mattered
I
pretty good.
hadn't previously. A couple weeks ago, I had started watching Love, Death, and Robots again trying to get through the third season, and I don't remember if I finished the third season, but I believe it's at the end of the second season. There's an episode where you start. It's like a futuristic noir. Like a detective type shows up, is walking in, he's getting briefed, and it's talking about these squatters. And what's up? Season 2?
Season 2.
That's what I was saying. I think it was
There's
the end
no
of season
order
2.
to Love, Death, and Robots. Love,
Uh,
Death, and Robots is purely a press play, and it will
Yeah.
give you the episodes.
Love, Death, and Robots.
I do
There's
too.
so many good animations and other things in there
It's
that are like,
the
I just want
ultimate
this movie.
display of Unreal 5.
And in that one, that episode specifically touches on the topic of like, if you can live forever but you can't have children, and you can't, like, it kind of touches on that topic of like immortality and what things it like, if you get to have immortality but you can't have kids, like, is that a good trade?
Which
And-
one's more important?
Yeah, and that episode like really is interesting to watch. It get just like that episode, like where I can weirdly connect these. That episode, when I watched it and was finishing it, made me think really hard and connect to Blade Runner in a weird way. Like, in like the kind of what was being talked about and how it was being talked about and the perception from the main character. Like there's some weird parallels I was able to make with that. But I was just thinking like the parallels with this episode of like the immortality and like how that reflects, and
Those weird parallels are the signs of good writing.
yeah.
Like the ones that make you go, well, I've seen a version of immortality here that kind of resembles this there, and neither of the universes line up in any other way.
Mm-hmm.
But suddenly they do. Like that is the expression of good writing. That's the expression, it's the expression of original writing, right? Because even what you just described, Parker, is like everything that TNG and Voyager experienced, and as much as their experience with this, planet that was going through life so fast, it doesn't even come close to what Seth MacFarlane wrote about. Now that we've gotten two separate experiences, and that's taking somebody else's idea and then making it your own. Like I don't feel like Seth MacFarlane plagiarized Voyager in any way.
Well, the thing
And
about
that's a hard concept for writers to get, but that's proof that it's possible.
the thing about plagiarism is the first thing that people have to realize is concepts and ideas don't strictly belong to one person or another. So, for example, if someone wanted to sue me for writing a book about spaceships, because Star Wars, any number of space shows. The thing is, plagiarism only matters when you steal people's characters, in my opinion.
Pretty heavily,
yeah.
like
Yeah, it's really the characters, plot devices, plot ideas. Those aren't really. Those are kind of subjective, because every story is basically derived off the first campfire story.
But if you think about it, Orville is the exact representation of not plagiarism versus plagiarism, because Orville is taking everything that we love about Star Trek, making it its own thing, making it equally good and equally questionable.
Yeah.
Right? Every planet they visit, every problem they face, you are left questioning. Very just as far as the paradigm that is Star Trek goes, Orville is the same. But based on copyright law, it's not, which is nice. But then also based on plagiarism law, it's not. Like if plagiarism had its own law, Orville is 100% not a carbon copy of Kirk but funny. It's not a carbon copy of Kirk but in a pornography.
Yeah, see, and that's why I like this show being what it is, because it's not this is why I'm glad that Seth got denied for Star Trek, because while I do think he would give a good job, he would be limited in what he could do. And so this is him giving us Star Trek without lore limitations, without having to worry about stepping on somebody else's timeline or headcanon. This is his.
I think that is an understatement of Seth's ability.
Yeah.
I think if anything, this is a legal workaround to not being accepted to Star Trek. Because Seth 100% could have done this in the Star Trek universe, and it would have worked. The same. Maybe not to every fan. There would have been 100% more people that would be like, no, MacFarlane's character does not equal anything like Picard. Like the fact that everybody either calls him Ed or MacFarlane and not his character's last name shows that. And that would have been a really fun debate, And just like in earlier episodes where I've said that, like, I really believe if I had to pick one captain, it's Ed versus everybody else, right? But if I had to decide which captain was going to get me the most tenure and the most experience in life, it's closer to Picard because he's the most resolved. But when it comes to, like, MacFarlane's writing and plagiarism, what we realize is that the difference between plagiarism and quality original writing based off of somebody else's
Building
plot
off of someone's idea, yeah.
is exactly. It's building. It's not taking the building and saying it's yours. It's taking somebody else's idea and saying how you
This is how
would
I see it.
interpret the crew
Exactly.
doing it. And I think that proves that Seth could do this in any universe, whether it was his own, the Orville, or in TNG, or not TNG, but in Star Trek
Yeah.
as a whole.
But that's just my point, though, is he's not limited at all.
So
He can do whatever he wants. And
Yeah, and I think your fears about his limitations are more in terms of EPs, more in terms of, editors and, people in charge of the broadcasting. Switching from Fox to CBS is a legitimate conundrum because if you don't notice, CBS is way closer to the Mormon ideology of what good is, whereas Fox is a lot more open to questioning reality and also being deviant. Like, Fox is the only program that actually accepted Family Guy and The Simpsons. If we really think about it, that's a fact. And so, if anything, Seth should have convinced Fox to buy the rights to Star Trek. That should have been the
Baller move.
yeah, then it would have ended up in the hands of Disney by now, and who knows how much they would have ruined
True.
that. So
Can you imagine if Disney had Star Wars and
Well-
Star Trek at the exact same time? How quickly that would end up in interesting ploy.
I used to be excited at the possibility of a Star Trek Wars crossover, and now I don't care. And see,
So-
the reason why I love the Orville so much, and even though I hated episode 2, I still love this
care.
show.
And if somebody wants to make a parody of the two,
Yeah,
that's called Star Trek Wars, or Star Wars Trek, or Wars Star Trek,
yeah,
or
that's
Trek
a
Star Wars,
that's another discussion
I'll watch it
entirely.
and I'll pay for it.
Yeah,
All of the
that's
dollars.
all you. I'm gonna pay for more watching of the Orville because it's very much it's really helped open my eyes to the necessity of independent content and the fact that the reason that Star Trek and Star Wars are in such trouble is because they're owned by corporations. Well, Seth didn't give up his creativity with the show. Even
Well,
with
no,
Fox,
I think-
he basically said,
I think
"No,
that's
this is
such
what
an
I'm doing."
an interesting conundrum for you, Parker, especially just me knowing you as a person. You are a lot closer to Seth. You are one of those people who grew up thinking you could do it better. And for a long time, I used to think that was, arrogance and childlike dreams. But nowadays, I'm like, maybe
The
he was
first
right.
draft of Star Wars JE would be better than everything Disney has put out, and that's saying something because man, that draft is
So-
pretty bad.
Just to
Dude,
clarify, a
I
couple things for
remember
myself real
training for
quick.
the
Oh.
scenes of those Star Wars fights.
Yeah, Brandon's got a question.
This was episode 3, right?
Yes, episode 3 of New Horizons.
So you're telling me
But no,
you
this
didn't
was
like
4.
episode 2? Is this 4?
No, this was Orville 3. You weren't there last week. That's
No,
right.
this is
I
4, buddy.
forgot. You had to take what?
Is this episode 4?
This is
No,
episode
this
3.
is 3.
It's 3.
No, this is
I was gonna
3.
say, I
2
thought it
was
was
the
3.
other one. My
Yeah,
bad.
2
Because
was
I watched
the
both
Yes.
last night.
yeah.
I watched the last 2 episodes, both of Orville and of Star Trek. I just called Star Trek. And I liked both of the previous episodes. I mean, I liked both the Star Trek episodes.
No,
but
hold
I
on.
like-
What did
We
you
missed
what
you
did you
last
refer to
week.
Star
You
Trek
would've-
as
you
again? How did you call it?
I called it
Star
Star Trek.
Yeah, get the anyway. We don't do that here. I'm just kidding. Sorry, it's an easy moment to take.
I liked both the episodes for Star Trek that I watched because I wasn't gonna jump straight to this week's episodes and not watch the previous ones. So I watched both the Star Trek ones, and then I watched both the Orville ones, and I liked episode 2 more than episode 3.
Yeah, I'm definitely
hands
the
down.
opposite.
Like.
Well, if you
hands
want to
down.
take
No,
like
No,
a couple
you
of
guys
minutes.
could get into that. Yeah, why don't you guys get into that? I'll set this one
I
up.
mean, I liked it. I thought from the moment they were talking with the Krill, and the Krill was talking about with their religion and what it was saying, I immediately knew that was clearly foreshadowing And so I was curious, like, how they were going to do it. And I liked what they did with it. I thought it was interesting. I don't think it was overtly original, because there's been things like that before, but also I liked it. Nothing to me like that. To me, that kind of situation is terrifying, because they are actively infecting you. So unless you're actively killing the enemy, your people are being turned. Don't get me wrong, I had issues with the episode. For example, when Morrison is like, hey, we need to get a defense crew set up. Oh, hey, Lamar is in the ducts looking at electrical stuff, and she's like, I'll go take care of it. She takes no weapons. She grabs no weapons. You've just decided there's a huge threat, and you just walk off. Like, listen, woman, I know you're strong. You don't do a good job in this fight demonstrating that. You could have ripped these boys in half, I feel like. But, like, you could have taken a gun, and it would have been so simple. It would have been way simpler situation of just like, blah, blah, like, we're done. Like, instead she's like, huh, come after me. And let me get in a fist fight with a creature that can spit in my face and make me one of this. Could you imagine if she had turned into one of them? They would have died. Everyone would be dead. The ship would explode because she'd just tear through the hull. Like, it just, that was out of everything in that episode, like, I liked the episode overall, but her running off without any weapon after making the decision of we need a defense grid made absolutely no sense to me. I was just like, what the?
Yeah, I didn't like it because every possible stupid decision that could have been made was made, and it was painful for me to watch.
I mean,
but
I suppose, but like with the children, that's reasonable all day. That's a realistic scenario with kids. That's what kids do. Kids don't listen quite often. The small child was like, we should have stayed. The older child, who was shown a disobedient cord constantly, was like, no, that seems like a terrible idea. I want to see what's happening. We could be also in danger in our room, especially if you can't lock the door. The room, their apartment room isn't exactly safer, to be fair. Like, the dude that they run into, he was kind of dumb, but also in a scenario like that, if you run into kids and they're yelling monster, usually the reaction is going to be like, okay, sure, where's the monster? And then it's like, oh my god, there's a real monster. I think Lamar locking himself, that was actually incredibly smart to me. I thought that was clever. I didn't realize what he was doing at first. Yeah, you're stuck in a prison, but also at that point, like, the only way you're gonna die is if everyone else dies. So, like, you're boned versus
that wasn't
being
even any
turned.
of my issues. My issue with Lamar was when he was like, okay, I'm gonna go track down where this electrical problem is, and I'm gonna use my own 2 eyeballs. While he's standing next to Isaac, a super advanced robot, and he's gonna use his stupid eyeballs. Like, what? Come on.
Okay,
Though,
no,
Dear audience, you are dumb.
That to me, I said this last time, and I'll say it again. For a fact, Isaac has never once demonstrated that he wouldn't open with some kind of analysis if he had anything. He had nothing. He didn't know. He didn't understand.
I'm still not sold.
I think what this show's trying to prove is that Isaac is very smart, but so is human evolution at this point. Like, humans are the ones that figured out the quantum drive, right? And Lamar is capable of understanding / running it. The difference between Isaac and Lamar is Isaac never ever questions human emotion, whereas Lamar would get hung up if he was dealing with something emotional. Isaac is like, I can never have to deal with that. I never have to wonder about where I belong in the universe.
Yeah, I still don't buy it. Go ahead,
I would make the argument that John's argument's, I don't think, a terrible one. I think in that scenario, the ship sensors are down, and usually when he has done scanning for them, he's utilized the ship sensors that he can just access and understand what they're saying. So and also whenever they've scanned on a planet, he doesn't use his own systems. he uses one of their scanners as well to scan and absorb the data. So
Yeah,
I think that's a fair argument.
He
That's not
interprets
my
the
initial
data
argument,
differently.
but I do think it's fair. Because I had a similar thought at first, and then I noticed, which when I saw it in the episode, I recalled seeing it previously. One thing they have done is where you have these, and where you can make the argument that it's a weird choice, where you have these tunneled areas throughout the ship, these ducting, so people can get in and do repairs if they need to, because they're out, in the middle of space. You can't rely on having a technician specifically come out there and fix your Wi-Fi, right? So you need to be able to do it yourself. The doors, if you pay attention to any of the doors that go into those sections, they are incredibly small. They are not the same size as the areas that they go into. They're smaller. And where Isaac could fit into the ducting, the doorway it shows when Lamar yells back at him and Isaac's like, "Oh, I'll go tell them." If you pay attention, that square is at a size where a human could squeeze through it, but that involves like compressing ourselves, which we can do, which Isaac cannot do. Well, I mean, technically he could, because we know that he's a human in a suit, but like the character can't do it because the character's supposed to be of metal and you can't compress his shoulders down. So he would never, like, you would have to pick him up, rotate him at an angle, and then hope that he's big enough to slip through. So him getting in there is a problem. That was the thing that like occurred to me, because if you look at the shot where he's standing there, part of his head's cut off and you can see like just the bottom of his like the top of his shoulders or something. So that tells me that little door is tiny little door. Why they made a tiny door, I don't know, but it is a tiny door. So you could make the argument that even if he was to go in there and scan things, which he has shown he can scan like the individual sockets and stuff, he can't get in there to do that. Because when they built it, they weren't exactly thinking of robot. Like, they weren't like, "Oh, robot needs to get in here."
Right.
A human.
So explain that when you get to that corridor, not when you're standing in front and just say, "I'm gonna find it with my own 2 eyeballs. I'm gonna save the day."
But
like,
if that's the thing is you're looking
what is
at
this,
it
just
from
a guy
an
in a
outsider
suit?
looking
Oh.
in. If you're part of the crew
Yeah.
there, that's going to be given information. Like, you don't need to elaborate on that. You already know. So then Isaac's like, "Well, they're like, how are you going to look?" He's like, "Well, I have eyeballs.
If anything,
Like,
that's
we don't have
evidence-
scanners that can scan
yeah,
it."
like I appreciate
That's
the attempts.
evidence
I'm
of
just
them
still not
taking
sold.
the time to prove that Isaac
But
couldn't
yeah,
have done it
all
himself.
right. Any last things going back to this episode? Sorry, we're coming up against the clock. We got 3 minutes left. Any final points or anything where the teaser certainly looks interesting. Looks like we're gonna get a look at the Krill homeworld this week. So we'll see how that goes.
I keep wanting the female Crow to come back. I want to see her back. I want to see the possibility of that relationship be a thing again, because that would be fun. That would be so fun, because I feel like it would be interesting. It would be interesting to have her for whatever reason. I don't care what the reason. Make up some stupid reason that she's stuck on the Orville again, but not as an enemy anymore, as an ally, because they're allied now, and have the situation of dealing with Morrison walking around their previous relationship. Then you have his ex-wife present, and the weird like back and forth animosity / friendship that could build from that between those two. But then also realize that like his ex-wife still has feelings, but feels like it's not realistic, and then the cruel woman probably still has feelings, but also hates him for things that he's done.
Yeah.
And have this weird like, I both like you and hate you because I still want this man, but
Yeah.
I can't, and you like that could be, it's like a stupid fun, like it could be its own little interesting fun event. I've
right.
been wanting that character to come back for a
Yeah,
while.
relentless in the chat says, "Damn, look at that beard." Thank you, relentlessly.
I'm not sure who he's
I'm
talking
very,
to, but I'm pretty sure he's talking to
I don't
me.
know. We got a couple of
Oh,
good
it's you,
beards
John?
on this stream.
He's
I
talking to you,
have
John.
none.
Oh,
I got
my
that
God.
5
Shade
o'clock
this one.
shadow. So, as you may have noticed, we did not have Kenobi in tonight's show. We have decided that we're going to go ahead and do a special this week, maybe Thursday or Friday. We'll figure out the exact time and, of course, blast the socials when we do, and that will conclude our Kenobi discussion, but we decided with between part 5 and part 6, and with the old man being so good that made sense just to shift things around. Talking to PD. Well, thank you. I appreciate the acknowledgement of the beard, whether it's good or bad. It's a lot of fun to wear, especially in the summertime. Other than that, we will absolutely be back next week with more discussion. My name is PD York. Thanks for watching.